hit record yet?
I did.
Then I'm as happy as I can be, Jeff.
That is such bullshit.
I'm so happy.
You fake enthusiasm so much for the sake of the show, man. I appreciate your dedication to the art.
Well, Jeff, I've been thinking about this all week, you know?
Yeah?
This is all I've been able to think about, all right? And I just want you to think about it with me. I want you to imagine that you're tied to a chair and someone is cutting off your toes with a pair of pliers, and all you hear in the background is, "Oh, I feel it coming back again like a rolling thunder chasing the wind."
Is that what you were talking about the other day? About that serial killer or whatever who was killing people. There's a serial killer
whose favorite band to kill people to was Live.
The irony is so beautiful.
It's not even a good serial killer band.
No, it's perfect. I don't know what you're talking about.
You know that he had jokes because he was Australian. So you know he was like, "Crikey, look at all that blood. All over you, all over me."
Oh, it's so dumb.
Can we do this maybe sometime? I'll make a tier list of all of the known serial killers' favorite bands and songs, and we could do a tier list of that.
That, you know what? Sure, I'm on board with that. Actually, here, hold on. I have a plan here because I don't know this stuff the way you do. So what I want is a list of the bands.
Yeah.
And
the
then
songs
I want
if we
the
know
list,
it. The favorite
song
song
the songs
if we know
if possible. And then I want the list of serial killers, but I want them separately.
Do you want to have to like match?
I want to rate the bands unrelated, and then I want to see if I can match the band to the serial killer. I want to see if I can do this. That sounds like a great game.
Oh man, it's been so long since we played a podcast game.
Been a while. The thing is, we've had so many like actual albums worth talking about that we just got, we got sidetracked with things, man.
It's really easy to get sidetracked when you're doing these kinds of things.
Unfortunately, good things have actually been happening.
So we don't have to think about things like true crime. But here's the thing with true crime, Jeff, is I know you're not a big fan, but it inspires a lot of music. And one of the greatest true crime stories of all time is Jack the Ripper, right? You know who has a great song about Jack the Ripper?
I mean, do you mean other than a lot of people?
That's right, we saw Judas Priest live, you stupid bitches! Hi, I'm Chris.
And I'm Jeff, and welcome to the Sound Judgement podcast.
Where every episode, we'll be discussing all of the important musical topics, from reviews to which member of Motley Crue is the most vile.
I'm gonna judge the officials. I'm gonna judge all the judges. It's gonna take you people years to recover from all my opinions.
The Ripper!
I mean, I know that, like, they have a Jack the Ripper song, but, like, so do a lot of other people, so I wasn't sure if you had a more, or a less direct segue or not. Because, yeah, we saw Judas Priest live, although we didn't hear the song Jack the whatever.
But you know who did play the Ripper? We'll come back to that.
Oh my god, I just realized where you're going with this. I am so dumb. I am so sorry. You know who did do the Ripper? Chris, okay, here's the deal. Here's what happened, right? Over the course of just over a month, we saw KK's Priest, and then we saw Judas Priest. KK's Priest being, of course, the band made up of former Judas Priest lead guitar player and co-writer KK Downing, who retired from the band in 2014, I want to say.
Somewhere around there.
He retired from Judas Priest.
Maybe even earlier than that, because I don't think he was on the Epitaph tour that I saw in 2011.
I can pull it up real quick.
Jeff, keep spitting facts, and I'm going to fact check that one.
Okay, go ahead and fact check. So, it is made up of KK Downing, former Judas Priest member, Tim Ripper Owens on lead vocals, who, of course, was the temporary vocalist in Judas Priest.
Infamous replacement man.
I will say, for better or worse, that's a very mixed bag, depending on who you ask. And then, I mean, there's a handful of other unrelated to Judas Priest members, but regardless, the current lineup, the lineup that we saw of KK's Priest was, of course, KK Downing, Tim Ripper Owens, AJ Mills alongside KK on guitars, Tony Newton on bass, and Sean Elg on drums.
Just real quick here, Downing officially left Judas Priest on April 20th, 2011.
Wow, it was earlier than I thought. My apologies.
That's okay. I thought, because I saw the Epitaph tour, and it was actually later that year in November, and it was the first tour they did without him, and I was almost positive of that one. They wasn't on that tour.
Oh, wow, okay. So, KK's Priest is, as you were calling it, we have Judas Priest at home.
We ordered Judas Priest off of AliExpress.
The name is obviously a reference to Judas Priest. Their set was like half Judas Priest covers, arguably more than half. I have to stop and count.
8 covers and 6 originals.
Okay, so more than half Judas Priest covers.
And even the songs that aren't Judas Priest covers are songs like One More Shot at Glory as opposed to One Shot at Glory, and Return of the Sentinel as opposed to the Sentinel.
Yeah, so basically it's just trying to be Judas Priest. And then about 6 weeks later, just this past weekend, we drove a couple hours out of our way to go see Judas Priest, the actual Judas Priest.
We saw Judas Priest live, you stupid bitches.
Yeah, we saw the actual Judas Priest, which currently consists of original. Well, okay, hold on. Not original, not the first singer, Al Atkins, who no one talks about. He's not particularly relevant. No offense, Al.
Wouldn't it be great if KK's Priest got Al Atkins?
That would have been funny, but I think it's good enough that they got the other Judas Priest singer. No, so it's most known vocalist, Rob Halford, Ian Hill, who is one of the original members of the band on bass, Glenn Tipton is officially a member of the band, but due to his diagnosis of Parkinson's disease, he does not tour. He occasionally shows up to play a song or two, but, I mean, we did not personally see him out here. But, he is still technically a member of the band. He is still part of the writing team. We also have Scott Travis on drums and Richie Faulkner on co-lead guitar here. And touring, because Glenn Tipton doesn't perform live, we have a man named Andy Sneap, who tours and plays with Judas Priest. Andy Sneap, for the record, is one of those guys who's been a part of a handful of bands. He's on a ton of records as an engineer, as mixing, producer. He's been around the block quite a bit. He's certainly not some no-name nobody. This is a man who knows what he's doing. He fills the role quite well. So yeah, so in the course of about 6 weeks, we did end up seeing the original band and then the kind of rip-off band. And that's what we're here to talk about, is just the two bands as live performers and how they compare. Especially considering the fact that, again, they're practically identical bands in a lot of ways. I will say I am sad there was not a whole lot of overlap in the set lists, though. I thought that would have been one hell of a little twist there if we got to see, two performances of Beyond the Realms of Death or something. We did see a couple song overlap, but not a whole ton.
The one that I was surprised to see was the Green Manalishi. The Fleetwood Mac cover was played by both bands.
That was bizarre, and I was not expecting that at all. Otherwise, we of course saw both do Victim of Changes, and we saw both do Breaking the Law, which was a very cool thing.
Yeah, Victim of Changes was kind of surprised. I didn't expect Judas Priest to pull it out, not KK's, but Judas Priest.
I expected it from KK's Priest. I thought that was a thing that I had seen video of them before. But okay, I want to start, unless you have a specific place you'd like to start, Christopher.
You can start.
Okay, I want to start with an opinion that I have mentioned here before not just, I mean, and to you and on, you know, previous times we've talked about the band Judas Priest.
Is this the world's hottest take?
This is the world's hottest take.
Put your gloves on, kids.
Which is that Tim Owens is the better vocalist than Rob Halford. There's a lot to that, though, because I am, of course, talking, and I use this phrase all the time, that we all stand on the shoulders of giants. Tim Owens could not exist if Rob Halford didn't already do it first. He literally took the Robert Halford style of singing, that same reinforced falsetto, shriek style of singing, and he learned to do it on a technical level, I would say, better than Rob Halford does. I also think Tim Owens has age on his side. Let's be fully honest with ourselves here. Rob Halford is 72 years old. Tim Owens is 56. We got a solid, you know, decade and a half here. But I was curious what my thoughts were going to be on them as performers, on them in the context of an actual live setting. And I even told you in the car on the way out that I had a theory.
You have a hunch.
Because I had a feeling, after we saw KK's Priest, I had this weird thought. And that is that Tim Owens feels so small on stage. And we were very close to that stage, right?
Yeah.
It's not a huge crowd. We were in the pit kind of area. I didn't look up anyone's height or whatever, because that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about stage presence. He doesn't strut around on stage as much as I thought he would, considering his vocal abilities. He feels like such a small presence. He's a small package with this shrieky, amazing voice that comes out of it. But he just feels like, oh, that's just like a dude. Like, there's just a dude up on stage singing.
Yeah.
And I had a theory. I wasn't sure because I had never seen Judas Priest live, and I wasn't sure because Rob Halford is up there in age. But I had a theory that Rob Halford probably was going to feel like a much larger man. And even though we were significantly further away at the Judas Priest concert,
way in the back,
Rob Halford feels like a force when he doesn't slowly just walk back and forth on stage. He like saunters across the stage, glaring down on the crowd right in front of him.
He's a presence.
To make the weirdest comparison, he reminded me of King Bob-omb from Bob-omb's battlefield in Mario 64, overlooking his battlefield. He just feels like this giant being up on stage who is just extremely in charge of everything around him. The way he walks, the way he carries himself, the way he holds his shoulders, the way he dresses in much bigger clothing. He has the large coats and all the craziness. He is a much more impressive entity to watch on a stage.
He's a better entertainer. Owens is maybe technically a better singer, but I
Owens
think
was not the performer.
He's kind of a terrible personality. He's not a good performer.
He's not. I mean, he's a good performer. I mean, don't like. Okay,
not vocally.
Please, please remember that when we are referring to these people, when we're saying someone isn't a good performer, please recognize that we are referring to people who are indeed professionals.
Yes.
Tim Owens is still in the top 1% of performers in the world, right? Like,
sure.
He is going to outshine most people who just exist at your local karaoke bar,
yeah.
Okay? Like, he is obviously still a professional level performer, but he is not the presence that I would imagine from such a heavy metal frontman, right? You have two different styles of heavy metal frontman. You have the Bruce Dickinsons who are flailing and they're all over the place and he takes up the entire stage somehow. Or then you have the Rob Halfords who just exude this aura of, I am in charge, here I am on the stage, and even though I am only a single human being, I am going to give you the idea that I am larger, literally larger than life.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is a huge difference in a live context. That is not something that comes across a record, even a live record. That is something that you only really get in the actual moment. All that being said, Rob Halford sounds so fucking good.
He sounds incredible. 72, insane.
Sounds unbelievable for, I mean, not even just for 72. He sounds really damn good, period.
Period, yeah.
Like, he sounds great. I would not be upset to have that voice come out of anybody.
Insane. Insane. He is so good. Now, me and sorry, what was his name? Sorry, me and Piss Jugman were having a conversation a little bit online after the show as people who have seen Judas Priest before, because that's the factor that Jeff doesn't have in this, is that this was his first Judas Priest show. This was my third.
Yes, I'll say I have never seen them before.
I first saw them in 2008 with Motorhead and Dio opening, and then I saw them again in 2011 after KK left for the Epitaph tour, and me and were kind of talking about since then, right?
Yes.
His screams are insane. I think he's gotten better with screaming.
Well, I think, as we've talked about before, there are some vocalists who go through like phases, right? Where like they shoot their voices out.
Yeah.
You and I have spent many an hour watching live Judas Priest footage during Rob's not as good years. There were definitely phases where he didn't sound very good at all, and there are phases where I think he sounded fine, but it's one of those like, you know what, he's old, you let him go, he's the cool guy.
Sure.
He genuinely sounded really good. Now, I also wonder, because I think I mentioned this when we talked about live performances before, and don't mind me, I'm gonna paraphrase my buddy Paul Stanley again, in defense of when they edit live recordings, right?
Yeah.
If it feels live, then it may as well be live.
Yeah.
There's a lot of imperfections in an actual live setting that you just straight up won't notice. Right. Whether it's because of how it sounds in the mix, live in the air around you, but when you put it on a record, you're hearing all of these individual, like, ooh, that sounded really bad. Ooh, that was really out of tune. Whatever, all these issues. You're not getting that in an actual live setting. You're completely overlooking it.
Yeah. There's so much going on. They're being bombarded by so much, what everyone's doing, that you're going to miss the little things.
So I genuinely wonder if I had a full, like, soundboard recording of the concert we saw, if Rob's voice is still just as impressive in that secluded context, or does he just sound that good in the context of a live setting? But in the end, practically, that doesn't actually matter, right?
No.
Like, we saw what we saw, and the experience was incredible.
Yeah. I'm just going to talk a little bit about some of the things that me and were pointing out. Me and Piss Jugman were pointing out afterward. We were talking about his highs, right? His highs are really good. He was using some echo to carry them out.
Yeah, absolutely.
But our boys on a tour, he's got a marathon, not sprint here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's face it. Even Tim Owens, there's a lot of delay and reverb on those high notes, right? That's how you make them pierce through.
Right.
It was a little more obvious on Rob's voice.
Yeah.
But I am not one to be bothered by that, right?
No, not at all.
Because in the end, your end result is what matters. That same logic, anyone who has a problem with that is the same kind of person who, I don't know, if you genuinely have an issue with effects on a voice, then you should have an issue with anything but acoustic instruments.
Well, no.
It's all effects.
That's not where I was going with that.
No, I'm just saying, like, just as a defense of, like, I don't care about that.
But the overall sound, I think probably this is the best Painkiller I've maybe heard, aside from, like, maybe the Off show in 1990 that sounded good.
The Off show in 90, yeah.
Yeah,
that's a perfect example of that song. I almost never think that song sounded good live.
Yeah. And I'm not going to pretend that he sounds as good on the record as he does, like, right now, as he did on the record or anything.
No.
But I think he's able to get that high screech a lot better than in 2011 when I saw him when he was... Pain! Killer! He's able to soar a little bit. He can't hold the note like he could. But with the reverb, with the effect, with the delay, it sounds really good.
Yeah, it sounded amazing in the context. Now, I mean, again, this is one of those moments. Painkiller is a perfect moment where I think the KK's Priest performance was better. I'm sorry. I don't think that's where Rob shines as much. I think Rob definitely shines more when it's a song that's mostly in his full range, and then he can burst into those high screams for a moment. I think that is where Rob really, really shines.
And that was the other thing that we were talking about. And this, I'm going to assume this wasn't a sticking point for you. Was that he didn't hold as many of his clean voice, straight, like, normal voice notes as he used to.
Well, and no, and I'm not expecting he can.
And that's just
an age thing.
That's just an age thing. And that's just something me and noticed from, we've seen him a couple more times than you have. It's just, oh man, it's sounding like it's more difficult for him to hold a note on Breaking the Law or something, even though he's now hitting these really good Painkiller notes. It sounds like he's, like, working harder to sing in full voice. Not a criticism, Justin. I hope he keeps
observation.
It up. It's an observation. I hope he keeps going for another fucking decade.
I absolutely think that this is a case of he had gotten better vocal training at some point, and that is probably something he was very specifically trained to work on now.
Yeah.
You know, because what you don't want, and I have used this as an example before, is the David Coverdale issue that I had seen, where he sounds incredible for a few songs, and then he just sounds like shit the rest of the night.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, again, he's running a marathon. He's got a sprint. He's not only doing 3 hours on that night, he's doing a full tour of America.
Yes. So, like, when I had seen David Coverdale last with Whitesnake, he came out wailing and screaming, and he sounded awesome for, like, 4 or 5 songs. And then near the end of the night, by the time we're doing, like, Still of the Night, he sounds so harsh and screechy and raspy and not in a good way. He has that dying cat sound thing going on. And that's not David Coverdale, right? He was doing his best Axl Rose impersonation, and it wasn't a good one.
Yeah.
Because he just can't do it. He tried doing too much. And it feels like Rob is coming out and he's holding everything back a little bit. So you're getting 80% consistently the whole show, as opposed to 100% for 5 songs and then 30% for the rest.
Exactly.
And that's just the nature of, that's a nature of vocal training. I mean, age is a factor. Like, obviously, I think there's no doubt that at various points in his career, Rob could have done 100% for an entire show, for an entire tour. People do it in their prime of all sorts of things. The man's 72 years old.
Yeah.
Let him do what he wants. Because, quite frankly, even other people in their prime do 80% for a whole show. Otherwise, that's how you ruin your voice. That's how you blow things out. But I think he sounded phenomenal. I think he sounded really awesome.
Yeah, I don't want any of those criticisms to sound like he didn't do well. It's just observations, like you said. He did an incredible show.
So we did mention that there were some overlap songs between KK's Priest and Judas Priest. We mentioned Breaking the Law, Victim of Changes, and I'm drawing a blank. Help me.
Green Manalishi with the 2-pronged
The Green Manalishi, thank you. So we had 3 overlapping songs, and unfortunately none of those 3 are ones that I think... They're fairly straightforward songs, so I really don't have a whole lot to say comparing them directly, do you?
Not really, no.
Okay. I do have a thought about the set lists, though. And this is a thing that I think works hugely in Judas Priest's favor. KK's Priest, the covers of Judas Priest songs they did, and their originals are all in the same style. They're all done in the more intense modern heavy metal. Judas Priest works their 50-year career. And I think you really feel the difference, right? There's a lot more push and pull throughout the entire set. There's a really good mixture of the newest, biggest, heaviest thrash. They come up with Panic Attack.
Yeah.
Which, as I have already also controversially said, I think is just Painkiller but better.
Check out our review of the new Judas Priest album to hear more of Jeff's hot Judas Priest takes.
It's true. I will fight anyone on that one. But they also weren't afraid to do, let's face it, they did Turbo Lover.
Well, okay.
And Love Bites.
I was going to say, because Turbo Lover is a standard. I've seen Turbo Lover all 3 times I've seen Judas Priest. But they're not afraid to pull out the kind of corny songs like Love Bites, which is a song that I'm pretty sure everyone hates but me.
Oh, I love that song. But I mean, corny or not is irrelevant. Stylistically, it's a very different song.
Yeah.
It is from when the band was a very different band than they were on Painkiller or than they were on Invincible Shield. Huge difference in style. So KK's Priest pretty much was full blast, all wide open, on 10 the entire show. Judas Priest, 10. Couple songs at a 7. Bring it down to a song at 5. They ended the song they ended the night on Living After Midnight, which on the thrash level, right, on my new made up scale, the thrash level is like a 4. It's not some heavy, crazy, super thrashy thing anyway. It's classic heavy metal.
KK's Priest passed it over.
It's hard rock it's hard rock by this point.
Yeah.
Right? It's a classic rock song. But the fact that they let things build and pull and push and it wasn't one note the whole time, I think that was a huge benefit for Judas Priest because it made every moment feel more memorable, where KK's Priest, as great of a show as it was, and I know it was because I know I had a really great time, it wasn't memorable.
Yeah.
There weren't very many moments that really stuck with me, whereas with Judas Priest, I have the feeling, I remember, like, just how seriously it felt, like, how intense it would get, and then they'd really pull back and do a classic hard rock song, and then they'd ramp it back up.
Yeah. It's almost my argument against the Zakk Wylde style of soloing. It's almost the same thing, as they just kind of got up there and they did one thing, and I kind of expected to hear more than one thing, and they just kept doing that one thing.
They do one thing very well. But they did one thing. I mean, even Breaking the Law, which I know is an older Judas Priest song, the way it's done live feels pretty modern and heavy, right?
Yeah.
It feels pretty ramped up still, because even at the time, it was one of their more full speed ahead songs.
And just in general, like, it has more punch live today than it did on a studio album in 1980, being produced by people who weren't good at producing metal yet.
Yes.
So, I mean, that's a factor. That's kind of my problem with British Steel, is that I don't think that album has a whole lot of punch or bottom to it. But it didn't
record
taste.
well.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, when we talk about live albums, is one of my general things, is especially for earlier rock albums, they didn't record well.
Right.
Just the way the technology was and people not really knowing how to do it well. Early hard rock albums feel so thin and small and weak, and that's why I love a lot of the live albums, because you get the
punch.
You get the extra punch. You can feel how much air was being moved on stage out of the speakers and whatever. So yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate, it's the fact of the matter. But
going back to what you were talking about, I also kind of feel like that's just like a Tim Owens thing too. I think where the guy has an incredible range vocally, but he doesn't express a lot of emotional range, which is another thing to me that goes back to he's not as good of a performer as Rob.
Yes, he has a phenomenal range as far as, like, notes.
Yeah.
Right? The number of octaves in the man's vocal range is impressive. But the amount of what we would call timbre, the tone quality ranges, he's kind of, again, full open, full speed ahead, screamy his entire range. And, like, yeah, he can sing in a way in the way of, like, it's still a heavy metal ballad kind of thing, but it's all still very much like one note, so to speak, you know, to use a phrase.
This is where I think Tim Owens feels like a cover singer, is when you get into a song like Beyond the Realms of Death.
How so? Finish that thought. I'm curious.
I just don't think he brings any kind of emotion to it or anything like that. I think it kind of, he's going through the motions like you would on a karaoke night, whereas when Rob Halford sings something, you feel it, you know what I mean? I hate to use nebulous words like that, but it's just kind of true. I've seen Rob Halford perform Beyond the Realms of Death.
So that's gonna fall into a category that I really don't know if I have a strong opinion on. And that is, one person can't decide what's emotional to another one. In guitar playing, you get a lot of that kind of argument, you know, I mean, to pick really,
like playing
really
with feeling kind of thing.
To pick really cliche examples, you have the people who will, to this day, and they need to get the fuck over themselves, the people who will just constantly talk about David Gilmour. David Gilmour can put more emotion in one note than Herman Lee can put into 3,000. And, like, that's not up for you to decide for other people's ears. Maybe I do feel a lot of emotion listening to, you know, some spastic insanity coming out of Yngwie Malmsteen. Like, that's not for you to tell me that it's not as emotive, that it doesn't have the same feeling. Because, quite frankly, fuck David Gilmour.
Okay.
I think he's boring. Like, that's not important to me. So, but I'm gonna put this in the same context now. I'm not going to sit here and tell other people that they can't love Tim Owens' performance of Beyond the Realms of Death. I cannot sit here and honestly tell somebody, well, it wasn't as soulful. It didn't have the real emotion in it. I know exactly what you mean. I am just clarifying.
Counterpoint?
I'm just clarifying. Go ahead.
I think it's much easier to express emotion when singing versus a guitar, because you can literally express emotion in your voice.
I mean, I'm going to argue that, actually. I am going to tell you that I think you're wrong. But this is a very subjective conversation here. Okay. Like, what we are talking about here cannot be put in any definitive terms. I can't say that I dislike the way Tim Owens does Beyond the Realms of Death in any way, shape, or form, because I love the way he sings that
I think
song.
he did a great job, but I don't know. I just
No, again, I know what you're trying to say. I'm just trying to explain that, like, I can't say that definitively.
Okay.
Now, I am all for, and I have mentioned this kind of thing before, I'm sure, at least I would hope so, I am all for imperfections. I am a huge sucker for when people are doing something that is at the absolute end of their physical abilities.
Mm-hmm.
Not to the point of hurting themselves. We're not talking people blowing their voices out. But I am talking about, you know what? Yeah, screw it. Go for it. And if it doesn't come out quite the way you have in your head, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
And this is a complaint where people will go back, again, to pick some guitar players. People will say that, like, Jimmy Page was sloppy. I don't think he was sloppy. I think he was playing at the absolute end of his abilities, which means things come out not 100% perfectly. Right? Jimmy Page would not do well playing super fast runs with a metronome playing behind him, because that's not the kind of player he is. He can do that up to an extent. You know, he'll play super fast runs up to a certain, tempo, but then he wants to play it at a faster tempo, and his hands can't quite keep up with it, and I love that. I love the fact that it's technically wrong, it's imperfect, because he's playing beyond his technical ability and he's just pushing himself out there. And I love when vocalists do that too, again, within reason. Not to the point of injuring your voices, but to the point of, you know what, if your voice cracks or you waver some or you're not perfectly on pitch, I don't care. I'm here for it. And that is where I get kind of stuck, because Tim Owens didn't really sing any bad notes that I recall hearing. Right? Like, they were all pretty much exactly where they're supposed to be, which I love just as much, but in a different way. Tim Owens isn't pushing himself to his technical abilities in any context. Everything he does feels so comfortable in what he's doing, right? He's very much mechanical in a way. I can completely understand, because I just used the word mechanical, and that's like the opposite of someone having feeling and emotion and expression. A lot of people will say those are two totally separate things. I don't necessarily think they are. I think
I'm taking the W on this one.
No,
I'm going to steal the W.
No, see, this is my point, is I think you really can't win. This is a subjective argument. Like, to me, like, this is the kind of argument, when I see them online, I just block people and move on, because I think the point you're trying to make isn't real. You are trying to make an argument that I think is just factually incorrect. You cannot tell me what I feel. You honestly cannot sit here and tell me that I don't get the same, right? If I put two recordings on of Beyond the Realms of Death, one of Rob Halford at his peak and one of Tim Owens at his peak, you cannot tell me that I do not get the same feeling from both.
Sure,
that is not up for you to decide.
Sure,
I mean, you can sit here. You can
sit
here and say it.
The Tim Owens one is going to make you want a cool, refreshing Monster Energy drink.
I'm just saying, like, you can sit here and say the words as much as you want, but I'm going to sit here and tell you that you really don't have a place to tell me that. Like, that is not your decision to make.
The Rob Halford one is going to make you feel warm and fuzzy, and the Tim Owens one is going to make you feel like you need a Monster Energy drink.
Sir, if any recording of Beyond the Realms of Death is making you feel warm and fuzzy, we are not listening to the same song. And I will say that objectively, you are wrong. Like, that is not.
You can't sit here and tell me that Beyond the Realms of Death can't make me feel happy.
I can't believe that Rob hasn't put Beyond the Realms of Death on any of his Christmas albums. Like, how is that not on there? He needs to re-record it for his next Christmas album.
I think that'd be great. You get some Jingle Bells in there, that's going to be perfect.
Ridiculous.
What if he re-records it about Santa? It could be about, like, the Santa Claus movie where Tim Allen knocks him off the roof.
I want to remake. You've sold me on the idea. I want a remake of the Santa Claus, but starring Tim Owens instead of Tim Allen. But otherwise, I want it to be an identical movie, right? Like, remake the plot scene for scene, but it's Tim Owens playing that character.
But it's Tim Owens, but he's still Tim Owens. He still has to, like, pretend not to be Santa Claus and do Judas Priest shows. He's like, I gotta be on stage at 8 o'clock. I can't look holly jolly.
Chris, let's talk about the rest of the bands.
Oh, I thought maybe you'd want to talk about the production. I thought maybe you'd like to talk about whose screen did you like better, Jeff?
I actually don't want to talk about whose screen was better because I don't know what the fuck KK's Priest is doing, but their backing screen was awful. It was the most generic, cheaply made CGI. I mean, like, you could have told me that it was AI produced 3 years ago, and I would have believed you. It was some of the most garbage backing video I have ever seen at a concert. I am pretending it wasn't real.
I sent Piss Jugman a link to them performing The Ripper with, like, the back screen, because the girl whomst he lives with hates AI because she's an artist, and it's taken her jobs. And I sent it to him, and I was like, that's this looks like AI to her. Because I kind of think it looks like an AI I Spy scene.
I don't actually know if it was AI generated, but that is the level of generic that it looked. I mean, there was multiple times the background was just like really cliche, like space super soldier people marching. Like, picture like Warhammer 40K or StarCraft Marines.
It looks like a PlayStation 1 like cutscene.
It was really, really bad. I don't know what else to say.
But the
and
Ripper
then, of course,
one,
there's the character.
The Ripper
well, I don't remember what the Ripper one was. What was the Ripper one?
The Ripper one was what they did that, like, Streets of London in the back while he was doing the intro. And it just looked like the spooky I Spy book put through an AI to make the fires, like, move. It is so garbage looking.
The whole thing was so terrible.
It looks so bad and so cheap.
Now, in all fairness, I don't have a whole lot of thoughts on the stage screen videos for Judas Priest. No fault to Judas Priest, but
they were fine.
The venue that we were in, also the way it was set up. I don't know if I haven't looked if this is like how the whole tour was done. If it was, this is very dumb. I think it was just a venue limitation where it was split into like 3 tall, thin screens. So there was like one image split between 3 screens that were like, I don't know, 10 feet apart each. So it was all like the middle screen was higher than the screens on the side, and it didn't all line up right.
It genuinely looked like they were trying to project the band's videos onto the Black Flag logo.
That's not the worst description. That's accurate. Yeah, it wasn't. But I'm not sure if that's a Judas Priest issue or if that really was just like, that's just the venue and there's nothing you can do about it. It's what they working with what you've got.
But it didn't look like they generated it 10 minutes before the show.
It didn't look super stupid, but it didn't look great due to the way it was done.
Yeah.
All right, a little bit about the rest of the band, like other members of the bands.
Sure.
KK's Priest, KK Downing, another man who is, of age. He is up there at 72 as well. Obviously, KK Downing is not playing the way he once did. I think he still looks good on stage. He still seems to do well. He's holding up there, but he's not what he once was, and I'm not expecting him to, and I don't care to. Because the fact of the matter is, KK's Priest has a man named AJ Mills who takes the place of the true lead guitar. AJ Mills I otherwise know almost nothing about. He is one hell of a performer. The dude is a phenomenal player. He has a great stage presence. He was a lot of fun to watch. I have nothing bad to say about this man. Otherwise, I couldn't say a damn thing about Tony Newton, who's on bass, or Sean Elg, who is the drummer for KK's Priest. I have no memory of what they even look like on stage. What I'm saying is KK's Priest has a singer who doesn't have a great stage presence, a guitar player who has a great stage presence, but he's older, and a guitar player who's phenomenal, and then the other 2 guys are just kind of there.
Yeah.
Not a phenomenal stage performance.
No. It's exactly like you said. Tim Owens, again, never been the best performer. This is like the 4th or 5th time I've seen him. Dude, like, working the crowd isn't his strong point. Never has been. And
now, I have seen Tim Owens before in a totally different setting, if you remember the Dio Disciples.
You know where we saw him is doing covers of Dio songs.
Yeah, I'll say I've seen Tim Owens twice in basically 2 cover bands.
But ironically, they wouldn't let him do the emotional songs. They had a different singer do the slow songs.
No, they had the other guy whose name I never remember because he's actually not someone I know. But we saw a Dio tribute act called Dio Disciples with 2 lead vocalists, one being Tim Owens. And that was also a great show. Now, Judas Priest, other members of the band, Ian Hill, another man, also 72 years old, go figure. Ian Hill's the bass player. He was mostly in the back again at 72 years old. I'm not sure what else I was expecting from him. But I think we need to give it out to the current co-touring guitar player for Judas Priest of Andy Sneap and Richie Faulkner, who are both just absolute top of that game.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Richie Faulkner is, he is 44 years old. He has been with the band since 2011.
Yeah.
He was but a young pup when he joined them. He is, you know how I've said before, when there's that certain point, like if you're making like tier lists of talent, once you get into that top tier, you can't keep comparing people, right? There's no point in arguing over who's better. Richie Faulkner is in that top tier. Richie Faulkner is the pinnacle of what a heavy metal guitar player should be. And you don't actually get better than him in any way beyond personal preference. He is unbelievable. He has an amazing image. He takes up just enough space on stage, so to speak, that he's not in the way of Rob doing his lurching across the stage bit, but he doesn't just stand in the corner and play either. He is his own little force up on the stage, and he is just absolutely incredible. So I have nothing bad to say about him. And Andy Sneap is incredible as well, for a guy who I don't think is nearly as well known. In the guitar world, Richie Faulkner is definitely a name that people know.
Well then, I guess my Richie Faulkner pick just got a little more valuable.
Oh, what does that mean? What do you mean?
I have a Richie Faulkner pick from the second time I saw Judas Priest.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, very cool.
And I've always just been kind of like, it's cool, but he's the replacement guitarist. Now, that was before he put out any albums with them, and we thought it was a farewell tour. It was called the Epitaph Tour.
Yeah,
it was 2011. Okay. We thought he was going to do this tour, and the band was going away.
And they didn't. And he is absolutely a force to be reckoned with.
I'm going to be 100%, Jeff. If you had seen that tour, it kind of felt like one. And I would not be surprised if it was the addition of Richie Faulkner that made Halford feel like he could keep doing it.
I'm going to be honest with you. If you read the rest of Rob Halford's autobiography, he pretty much comes out and says that's exactly it.
That makes perfect sense.
I don't recall him saying exactly that he was like planning on retiring, but he did talk a lot about how adding Richie in the band felt like this whole new rejuvenating.
It's a shot in the arm.
Yes. Because he really is just that good. There's an amazing story that he tells, and I've also seen this story being told, I believe, from Glenn's perspective in an interview. They were at, I want to say it was Glenn's house for Richie to do a true audition. So Richie's up in another room warming up. So he's just up there warming up and riffing and shredding away. And Rob and Glenn are in another part of the house, and they hear him, and they just basically look at each other and go, oh my God. Like, this is it. Like, this guy.
Yeah.
I mean, he really is just that good.
Yeah.
And Scott Travis, now I am not really one to say a whole lot about drummers. I really have no strong opinions on many drummers. I will say that they gave Scott Travis a moment on the microphone right before they introduced Painkiller, and he did a great job hyping up the crowd for one more, for his big intro song. Obviously, that drum intro for Painkiller is iconic.
Yeah,
and they gave him a good moment, and he has a personality to talk to the crowd and get them psyched and ready to go. And he
let Rob go get
fantastic.
a sip of water.
And he's been in the band since 1989. Like, he's not exactly a new guy for the band. He's not just a fill-in.
They didn't give him a drum solo this year, did they?
No.
Normally he has a little bit of a drum solo before Painkiller.
Oh, really?
Yeah, nothing crazy, but like he'll do like a minute of drumming, probably just so the rest of the band can like relax for a second, get some water.
Oh, okay.
Whatever they do. But yeah, normally it's nothing crazy, but like a minute or two drum solo before Painkiller.
Gotcha. I mean, that makes sense. It's a perfect song to roll into.
Yeah. If I recall, he does the thing towards the end where he does a bunch of like, double bass and then points the stick at the crowd and we all yell pain or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so we covered vocalists. We talked about the set list. We talked about their backing videos. We covered the rest of the band. I don't necessarily want to like pit them against each other as far as rating goes, but I think the way we've both talked about them, I think it's fairly obvious which one was ultimately the better show.
Yeah, so save that money for KK's Priest when they come around to your town. You can check out Tim Owens. He's gonna sell you some Monster Energy.
Is he still sponsored by Monster?
I actually have no idea, but
he is.
I'll never be able to forget the years where he came out in a Monster leather vest with a Monster hat with Monster sweatbands, and then he takes off the Monster leather vest, and there's a Monster button-down shirt underneath it. And I'm just like,
I was gonna say,
can they draw a line between you being sponsored and you being a billboard? Like, do you have to have a Monster tattoo? He had a Monster tattoo.
It was genuinely hilarious, and I love it. It's so dumb.
I'm never going to be able to forget that because I saw him 4 times like that, and this is the first time I've ever seen him not just covered in the Monster logo.
In Monster logo. But no, I mean, KK's Priest was a fantastic show. Like,
it was a good show.
Absolutely. I absolutely would recommend, if they come back, I will 100% go see them again.
Cool.
It was a fantastic show. I think it's fairly obvious that I think Judas Priest was the better concert, though.
Yeah, get your nickels together and go see Judas Priest. Just start saving.
Go see them both if you can. I mean, they were fantastic. Go see them both and
need
compare.
a lot of nickels.
Christopher.
Yeah.
Did we want to, I mean, I don't actually, did we want to talk about openers at all, or do you want to get into, what else have you been listening to?
Oh, what else have you been listening to? Jeff, I've been tying myself into a chair, and I've been cutting my own toes off and listening to live. I'm just kidding. You don't have to cut your toes off to be tortured when you're listening to live. You're listening to live.
Oh, not poor live. Poor live. I mean, I know we had this brief talk in the car, but like, man, there was that era where just like all those 90s alternative rock bands. I am so sick.
They're
of
fine,
everybody...
but they're the most middle of the road that you could possibly find in the middle of the road.
I am so sick of everybody saying that Scott Stapp stole Eddie Vedder's voice when that was half the singers at the time. Like, that was just the style. Man, I don't... God, I could make a single playlist of songs from that era that I liked, and I will just leave it there. Like, that's it. I'm done.
How many live songs are on it?
Probably none.
Well,
I don't want to listen to live. So, beyond live, what have you been listening to?
You go first.
Of course I have to go first, because you didn't think to, like...
No, I didn't think to do the thing that we do every time.
Because we are recording this right at the beginning of May, I, of course, have my stats.fm little monthly wrap-up thing. And I would like you to know, through the month of April, I listened to 5,762 minutes on Spotify. So again, that is not including anything I listen to outside of Spotify. That is just minutes recorded by Spotify. And my top 5 artists of April were Elf, Brian Setzer, Stray Cats, and Frank Sinatra. Here's the problem with that list. I am infuriated that the band Elf, as in the blues rock honky-tonk band that Ronnie James Dio was in before Rainbow, according to Spotify, is 2 separate bands. There's ELF, all capitalized, and ELF, only the E is capitalized. They had 3 albums total, only 2 of which are on Spotify. I added the 3rd one and just have a playlist of all 3. But it records as 2 separate bands, and I hate it. But Elf and Elf are my number 1 and number 2 most listened to artists of April, so I listened to a lot of Elf, apparently. And I also listened to a lot of Brian Setzer and Stray Cats. The problem with that is that Stray Cats is the band Brian Setzer was in before he did solo albums, so it was practically the same music. I don't know what else to say, it's a little annoying. And I'm actually surprised Frank Sinatra, I got enough on there. Like, I have been listening to Frank Sinatra, I'm surprised he got enough to get the number 5 spot, though. It has been a lot of Brian Setzer, Elf, and a lot of that. No, actually, and a lot of, and I almost hate to admit this, a lot of the Cherry Poppin' Daddies.
Oh, we're gonna have to censor that.
They have the worst name possible, but God, they're so good. Christopher,
did you ever end up listening to that rockabilly band that Lemmy was in, the Head Cat?
Oh yeah, I mean, I listen to them quite a bit. I listen to a lot of rockabilly. I'm on another rockabilly kick. Brian Setzer, I just think is I mean, I just think he's like one of the best of what he does. I like the slightly more modern sound, right? Like, he's probably the biggest name, and I think he's also just the best guitar player in that realm. And he's, the Stray Cats were in the 80s, and he's been around ever since. So, like, it's more modern, it's better recording quality, and he's a phenomenal guitar player. So Brian Setzer is just, when I'm listening to that rockabilly and swing revival kind of stuff, a lot of it's going to be Brian Setzer.
You might be surprised to hear this.
Yeah.
But my second most listened to artist is Judas Priest.
God, I'm so shocked.
For the past 30 days.
Absolutely mind blown.
You might
never
be
saw that
shocked.
coming.
Yeah, I'm sure you never saw it coming. Number one's Alice in Chains. I don't know what really did that. Maybe the crippling depression did that, but you know, how
Jesus,
you know how it is sometimes. Number 3 was Artillery, and it's probably because I made the split-second decision to go see them and then had a kick afterwards. You know how it goes.
Yeah, I do know how it goes. Actually, that makes a lot of sense.
I was just like, I could take the long way home and catch Artillery, and I did. And they played to a room of maybe 20 people, including staff. So it's always nice when a band flies overseas to have that. But someone should not have scheduled that in Pennsylvania on the day of the eclipse when everyone was going to be in Erie.
Oh, that's very true. I kind of, yeah, that's, I mean, what can you do? That's just unfortunate, though.
Yeah. So, oddly enough, number 4 is Billy Squier.
Weird.
I don't know how we get to these places sometimes, but we do.
Didn't see that coming.
So I'm listening to that podcast. By the way, obviously, last podcast on the left. For those of you playing along at home, their most recent episode was about a guy who was killing people to the band Live. If you didn't pick that up from the multiple jokes we've made about it,
I guess it's true. We didn't actually reference what it was we're talking about.
It's fine. It's okay. They'll figure it out. They're smart. All 2 of them. One of the hosts made a joke that if he had been listening to the Toadies instead, he would have at least had a better victim base. Which made me realize that I don't know any Toadies songs aside from Possum Kingdom.
Nope, same.
And I found out that they're actually kind of cool.
Oh, are they?
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever.
Nothing like crazy out of the ordinary, but I listened to the album that Possum Kingdom was on, and it didn't really sound how I expected it to sound, which was a lot more generic.
Yeah, I don't think I ever actually put any time into listening to them, to be perfectly honest with you, so I have no opinions here. I really don't.
And then I kind of tried to figure out if I liked Portishead, and the answer is maybe.
Why maybe? I'm curious what your thought process here is.
I think I just need more time with it.
Okay.
It's the kind of thing I could see, chilling to in the right setting.
Okay.
But I listened to it at work, and that probably wasn't the right setting.
That's not the best place to listen to anything for the most part. Have you listened to any new releases that were, I mean, obviously nothing that we're gonna make a full episode about. Anything new come out that you've just given a couple listens to or whatever?
I'm gonna be completely honest. I have my list of things that I need to listen to up to date as of yesterday, but I haven't put much time or energy into new music over the past couple weeks.
Okay, understandable. Just wondering. I mean, because I did give
that is something I have to get back onto, and I have to I plan
no
to. But no, I mean, just even for myself, because I put on the new Tier album, and I was one song, and I was I'm just not feeling new music right now.
I get that.
I'm in one of those moods where I want to go back to my tried and true classics and listen to Alice in Chains another 5 times.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I will say I would throw out there Into the Realm by Castle Rat.
Oh,
who I mentioned to you, but that I otherwise am not familiar with this band. Your brother has been feed.
Your brother has been playing all of the singles as they come out because I guess Spotify showed them to him too.
Yeah, okay.
And I haven't listened to the full album yet, but they released 5 singles before the album came out, so I heard probably half of the thing.
It's a cool one.
Yeah, it was. It sounded very cool.
I just wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if you gave anything a listen to. I mean, I know there is of course, there is the new Pearl Jam. There is, of course, the new...
Are we going to talk about a Pearl Jam? Do you want to talk about a Pearl Jam?
I really don't.
No.
I'm going to be honest with you. I really don't want to talk about a Pearl Jam.
Do you feel like you're maybe wrong about a Pearl Jam?
I am not wrong about a Pearl Jam.
Is there anything you'd like to maybe apologize to Mr. Edward Vedward about?
You know that... Oh, you're talking about Eddie Vedder. I thought you were talking about whoever left that comment on a video of ours ages ago.
Mr. Edward Vedward.
Yeah, I realize that now. No,
I don't his legal name.
No, I don't want to apologize to Mr. Edward Vedward. What I have been saying about Pearl Jam for years still stands.
That they're the greatest band.
There's a couple good tracks on the new album. I will give it that. I will come out and say it. It's got a couple good tracks. Are they songs I'm going to go back and revisit a lot? No.
2 thumbs up from Jeff.
But it wasn't a complete abysmal mess like I was expecting. I am not wrong about a Pearl Jam.
You might be wrong about a Pearl Jam.
I am not wrong about a Pearl Jam.
Well.
For the record, that's a comment we got ages ago when we did Pearl Jam's last album in 2020. I believe the comment literally just was,
you're wrong about a Pearl Jam.
Pearl Jam.
Yeah.
I'm not.
You might be wrong about a Pearl Jam. But
I'm not.
We'll talk about this the next time when we do Pearl Jam's entire discography.
Absolutely not, sir. Christopher?
Jeffifer.
Are we done?
I'm done.